All right, good evening, guys. Welcome to the Dolphin NPS tutorial for Wednesday night. My name is Joe Durant. I'm your instructor tonight. I am one of the instructors and senior researchers for the Center for Pain and Stress Research, and tonight we're going to do a tutorial on the Dolphin Neurostim. So if you have one, do please bring it out so we can take a look at it, and we're going to start going over all the features. But before we get started, this presentation will last about an hour. And we'll have 30 minutes at the end for you guys to have question and answer time. You can type your questions in the chat section, or you can ask them via live chat. And tomorrow you guys are going to get a link from us that will allow you to watch this video as many times as you want. So if there's a part of it that you miss, you're certainly welcome to go back and review it. You're also going to get an invitation to join our Facebook forum. It's a great place to connect with other people who are doing this therapy and to ask questions. Those of us who teach this stuff get on that forum periodically and answer questions for you guys. So without further ado, welcome to the Dolphin tutorial. If you have a Dolphin, please pull it out and we will go over all the features. So starting at the tip here, we have a biocompatible alloy tip. And if you notice, when I push on this tip, it's spring loaded. So it does retract. So it cuts the chances you're going to poke a hole in your skin. It's not particularly sharp, but it's sharp enough that it could catch on you. When you clean the Dolphin Neurostim, please do wipe it with an alcohol pad, but do not pour any liquid into here. There's a conductive medium in here that helps it conduct electricity back to the electronic part. And if you pour cleaning fluid in there, it can corrode that and cause problems for you. So moving up from here, you will see a little black button. This is kind of our go button. When you decide to do a treatment, you're going to hold that button down. You'll notice that with the unit off, it doesn't do anything, but it will do something once they turn the unit on. So you're going to have to hold that button down while you're doing a treatment. And when you let off that button, the treatment is no longer in progress. And from here, you have a little roller switch. So this is your on and off switch. And it also controls the intensity of the device. So if it's too intense, you can roll it back a little bit, or you can turn it up a little bit. The other thing that it does is turn on the battery test light. So if I turn this on and roll the Dolphin Neurostim over, you should see a green light right here, and you'll notice there is not one. So what it should look like is something like this. You should see a green light right here. If you do not see that green light, like on this one, that means that your battery is getting ready to go dead and you need to change your battery. So why don't we take a minute and go over how to change the battery on the Dolphin Neurostim. You will notice that there is a screw at either end of the Dolphin Neurostim. Many people are tempted to take those screws out to try and change a battery, but that is a terrible idea. It will void your warranty, and you're going to have to send the unit back to us to have it put together because all kind of parts are going to fly all over the place. But if you look, you will see there is a nice little battery compartment here, and there's a little slot right here. You can open that with a knife or even a quarter. So once you pop that open, you will see just a plain old-fashioned 9-volt battery in there, like so. So these devices are compatible with basically 3 types of 9-volt batteries. They are compatible with Panasonics. They are compatible with Duracells. They are also compatible with Energizers. You will notice that there is not a little there's not a little wire with a pad on it like you see in a lot of 9-volt battery devices. So we don't want to put that on there so that those things always break. So anyway, what we discovered when we designed the battery compartment is that not all 9-volt batteries are the same size. Sounds kind of weird, right? So like AA batteries, C batteries, D batteries, all of those are exactly the same. But in 9-volt batteries, some are a little shorter and some are a little longer. So if you put a battery in here that's too short, it's going to rattle around a little bit and you're going to get intermittent contacts. And so it's really going to interfere with your treatments. And if you get a battery that's too big and you try and shove it down in here, you're actually going to push and you might actually break something in here, and that's not good either. You may find other batteries that fit. If you do, I would strongly urge you to stay away from cheap dollar store batteries. They have a funny habit of dumping all their voltage at once, and they can actually fry the circuit board on your device. So if you just stick to Duracells, Panasonics, and Energizer batteries, you'll be good. Again, please don't take the screws out. That's actually something that we get a lot of customer complaints that they tried to change a battery and took the screws out and had problems. So without further ado, I'm going to see if I can lay hands on a good 9-volt battery here. This one should be good. And there's a little diagram here that shows you where to put it in. So we're going to slide this in here. turn the device on. Oh, that one's not a good battery either. Let's see what we got here. Should have one here somewhere. Oh, wait a minute. Here we go. All right, so now I got a nice green light, so I'm good to go. So when you go to put this battery compartment cover back on, you will notice it is a very tight fit. It is a tight fit to hold that battery in there tight, so it's going to make it snap when you close it. I promise you it's not going to break. It's designed to do that. So now we've gone over the treatment button. We have gone over the on and off switch. We've gone over how to check your battery. So every time you turn this unit on, I would roll it over and make sure you have a good green light there. You can adjust the intensity of the stimulation with this roller switch. You're not going to notice anything until you actually start treating with it. And then up from here, you'll notice a tiny little black dot. If you push on that and flip the unit over, you will notice it is now blinking. So this puts us in a constant treatment mode. So this thing will run automatically for anywhere from 11 to about 14 minutes. It counts the number of electrons going through the tip. So it gives you sort of a timed treatment cycle. Depends on the battery itself. So if the battery's stronger, it's going to be a little faster. If the battery's weaker, it's going to take a little bit longer. But we did that because on the older units we had, people would put vagus nerve stimulation on and they would fall asleep at night in their bed and they would run it all night long and wake up with a dead battery and feeling a little under the weather because they had somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 hours of vagus nerve stimulation. And that'll make you a little tired. So this device will actually, once you put it in the constant treat mode, it'll run for 10 to 12 minutes. And then once that is over, it will revert back to a constant light and you will hear a steady tone. And that's your cue to either turn the device off or push the button again and continue the treatment. If you move to the back of the Dolphin Neurostim, you'll notice that there is a metal plate right here. It is conveniently placed so that when you grab it, your thumb rests on it. You cannot execute a treatment without there either being your thumb or a little electrode like this on that metal plate. Electricity has to come out of the tip of this unit and has to return back into it some way to complete the circuit. So this is how we do it. But there are other ways to do it that I'll show you in a little bit. So when you're doing treatments, I do prefer that you hold it like this. It is designed so that to fit in your hand, kind of like a pen. This picks up the weight of the unit where the battery compartment is. Some people try to hold it in funky ways like this, and it always ends up flopping all over the place. And when you use this, one of the things this device will do is find acupuncture points for you. But to do that, you need to be able to have fine motor control. So that means you need to be able to rest your hand down and make small, tiny circles to properly locate what you're looking for. And if you're holding it in some oddball way, it's not going to work very well. So just use it the way we intended. All right. Up from there, you will see a little slider switch that says wet, dry, and normal. So this device does find myofascial trigger points, and it also finds motor points and acupuncture points. It does that by measuring the conductivity of your skin. So the more electrically conductive a point is on your skin, the more likely it is to be an acupuncture point. And this is calibrated so that it picks up on those points for you. So you're going to know that it picks up on a point when, I'm going to hold this the wrong way just so you can see it, when you hear a really high pitch and the light goes out. So that's going to tell you when you're on an acupuncture point. When you go to other parts of the skin that aren't acupuncture points, it doesn't really change tone much and the light does not go out. But some people have very wet skin. I live down in the States in Georgia. Down here it is very humid and hot right now, so people tend to come in and they're pretty sweaty. So that's a lot of salt water, which is very conductive to electricity. So in that case, I want to push this over on the wet setting because salt water is very conductive to electricity, and I will find false positives all over the place. But if you're up north somewhere where the climate's drier, I was just out in Phoenix, Arizona at a conference, and we had to have these devices on the dry setting to make them more sensitive to finding acupuncture points because everybody out there has really dry skin because it's hot. I think it's going to be like 111 or 114 this week. So even though it's humid down here in Georgia, I'm glad to be back and not in Phoenix tonight. Up from there, you're going to see another little slider switch that says polarity. There's a minus, a plus, and a plus minus symbol. So the minus symbol is your negative polarity. That is the same as bringing things down in acupuncture. It's dispersive. So in the world of Oriental medicine, you either want to bring things up or down. You have some conditions that are excessive, in which case you want to bring them down. And that's your negative polarity here. In some cases, you have things that are that are deficient and you want to bring things up. You want to tonify things. So that's going to be your positive polarity here. So examples of things you might want to sedate would be things that are excessive. So that would be like headaches, trigger point pain, nausea, seizures, mold toxicity, heart attacks, strokes, what else? Asthma attacks, diarrhea, constipation. All those are things you want to bring down. But there are some situations where you want to bring things up. So that would require you to put this in the positive polarity. So in acupuncture, if you have a channel that is deficient, so let's say you have depleted kidney chi, which is your life essence, you would use the positive polarity to bring that up. And that correlates with your adrenals. So it brings up your adrenal, your overall adrenal, I guess, ability to make adrenaline, so that you're not adrenally deficient. And also you might use it on somebody who's got Bell's palsy, where their face is drooping a little bit. And you also might use this on someone who is working on having a facelift, like an acupuncture facelift, or even fertility. So those are times when you might use a positive polarity. Then we have this little biphasic channel here, and that channel will actually allow you to do a biphasic current. And though this is direct current, so the electricity you guys are going to be using with the Dolphin Neurostim is low frequency direct current. And normally it looks like this on a graph. So let me show you what it looks like here. It is a monophasic square wave. So you're either going to have a monophasic square wave positive polarity or monophasic square wave negative polarity. So if you were to look at this on an oscilloscope, you would see it's pulsed and it is square. It's about a 50% duty cycle, which means it's on 50% of the time, off 50% of the time. But if you flip the polarity and go to the negative polarity, it's the same, just on the opposite side of the scale. But if you put this on the biphasic channel, you're going to have something that looks like this. You're going to have a biphasic wave like this, so it goes above and below the line. It is still direct current, even though it alternates above and below the baseline, because it stays the same over time. Alternating current always changes. Direct current stays the same. It doesn't change. So alternating current is derived from direct current, and it has some of the features of direct current in that it can alternate, but direct current has the ability to be monophasic or it can alternate. In terms of what you want to put into the body, I only recommend putting direct current into the body. Anything else can be either ineffective or can actually push your body into the wrong direction. And that includes most of the TENS units and eStim units that are on the market today. They have a tendency to deplete take your heart rate variability down, as well as your high frequency vagal tone, and can actually increase your cortisol levels. Whereas if you use low frequency direct current, it will drop your cortisol by as much as 50%. It will increase your high frequency vagal tone and your heart rate variability. So it's a positive thing for your health. The body likes a very small slice of electricity. If you go beyond that, it either does nothing or could start to be, can start to have negative impacts on your health. Okay. So that's all the little features of the Dolphin Neurostim, as far as I can tell. I think we've gone over everything here. So now we need to go about the business of teaching you how to find a few treatment points. So if you happen to have either, let's see, we can pull out, if you have the Dolphin Neurostim, it has a book like this. It says Natural Health. And when you look in the Natural Health book, we'll pick out, let's find something here that's useful. There is let's see here on page 55, there is a protocol for menstrual cramps. And you will see that next to each of the points, there's either a plus or a minus. For the most part, people are not very fond of menstrual cramps, so that's something you want to bring down, and you will notice there is a negative polarity by all of these. So when you actually look at your protocol books, whether it is the Natural Health book or if you've got the vagus nerve stimulation kit, if you have the vagus nerve recovery manual like this, you will notice that all the protocols in there also have a negative or positive by them. So it's going to give you a pretty good set of instructions. If for some reason you do not know what polarity to choose, you need to think about what you're treating. Is it something you want to bring up or down? So it's actually pretty simple. It could get a little confusing, but it's generally a pretty simple thing. So a headache, you want less of that. So you want to put it on negative polarity. You want to bring it down. If you're constipated, that's a condition of excess. You want to bring that down. But diarrhea is also a condition of excess. You want to bring that down too. So mostly, if you just keep the tune on the negative setting, like 99% of the time, you're going to do everything you need to do. But every once in a while, you might want to put on the positive setting. The good news is if you pick the wrong polarity, nothing really bad is going to happen. The worst thing that's going to happen is your treatment is going to be maybe a little less effective, but you're still stimulating the points and you're still going to get outcomes. So don't be overly concerned if you happen to look and see you've been stimulating the points on the wrong polarity. Your patient's probably still going to feel better. Okay, so next thing we're going to do is talk about how to find a couple of acupuncture points. So let me find a couple in the book here that you guys can follow along with. I'm going to teach you how to locate them. Oh, let's see here. I'm in the Vagus Nerve Recovery Manual, and I am on page 12. On page 12, you will see that there are a couple of acupuncture points here. There's one on your hand right here, and there's one in the crease of your elbow. So we're going to go over those 2 points. So this one in your hand is called large intestine 4. It's called Hoku. Hoku is translated roughly as a great eliminator. It's a very widely used acupuncture point. People know it as a point that is treated for headaches. It's actually a point that treats the anterior neck and face. So anything in this area, everything from laryngitis to sinus problems to toothaches. It also can aid in speeding up delivery when somebody is delivering a baby and can release oxytocin. And it's a pretty good point for most headaches, although we do not recommend it for migraine headaches because you can get rebound headaches from using that particular acupuncture point. So there are some other points that are a little better for migraine headaches. But with this one, you'll find that a lot of time it does make the headache go away, but in about 50% of the cases, you'll get a rebound headache that's worse than the one you started with. And that's not good if it's a Friday afternoon and you just send a patient home for the weekend. So I'll teach you a better point for that in a little while. So Hoku is found in the meaty part of this area between your index finger and your thumb. If you run up this way, it's not in this little bit of skin right here. It's actually in the meat right up here. One of the things you can do is point your hand out in front of you like this and pinch your index finger and your thumb together. And it makes a little mountain right here. So on the top of that mountain is your acupuncture point. And if you pinch right there, you will find that it is quite tender. So I'm going to mark that point on myself so you can see it. Let's see if I can find a marker here that looks good. So this is roughly where Hoku is. And we're going to use our Dolphin Neurostim in a minute here to see if we have marked the point properly. There are several other acupuncture points around the area. So when you're doing this, you need to move carefully and slowly. Like if you come up against the bone right over here, you're actually going to end up on an acupuncture point that's called surgical Hoku, which is used for doing acupuncture and surgery under acupuncture anesthesia. So this is a point that's used for doing surgeries, but this is your general pain point Hoku right here. So we're going to turn the Dolphin Neurostim on. We're going to put on the negative polarity. It's not super wet in my office right now, so I'm going to set this on the normal setting. And we're going to pretend like I have a sinus condition of some kind, so that's something we want to bring down. So we're going to use a negative polarity here. And I'm going to put this in my hand, and I'm going to hold my hand up so you can see. I'm gently going to pull this around. And I'm not using a lot of pressure here. And you'll notice that you'll see the light flicker a little bit. And when I get on top of the point, the light goes out and I get a really high pitch. Now, I have been doing this for 20-something years, so I do make it look a little easy. But I promise you, if you practice this for a couple of days, you will have it down like a champ. It's not a difficult skill to master. The things I can tell you that will help you with this is to make sure you are holding this with your thumb on that metal plate. Again, if you are looking for points and do not have your finger on that metal plate, you will not find the points. If you're finding it on yourself, all you have to do is touch this plate. If you're trying to find points on someone else, you have to have skin-to-skin contact with that person. So you have to touch them and then find the points. If you don't touch them, you won't find the points. You can't touch their clothing. It's got to be their skin. And this will not find points on top of your clothing. Now, you can work the tip of this through the clothing, through your clothing, and get it down on the skin and find points that way if you're pretty good. But this needs to be in contact with skin, and your hand needs to be in contact with your patient's skin as well. If you're treating yourself, this is all the contact you need. You don't have to like touch yourself in extra places to find the points. And you want to use small, slow circles. So if you are doing this really quickly, you're going to just go blow right over the point and you will never find it. So just take your time. Just sit down in the evening, play with it a little bit. If you want to feel really inferior, put this thing in the hands of a little kid, and they will find acupuncture points in like 2 seconds flat, and they'll make you look bad. My kids do it all the time. So just watch a kid do it, and you can learn how to do this. The other thing you don't want to do with this is you do not want to jam this down really hard on your skin. If you do, I'm going to show you what happens. So your skin, for the most part, is not a very good conductor of electricity, but acupuncture points are one of those areas where you do conduct well. But if you push on your skin really hard, so there's not an acupuncture point right here, but if I push really hard, you'll notice that I can make the light go off and I can make the pitch go up. So what I've done is I've pinched the skin so hard, I've compressed it that it becomes more conductive to electricity. So I basically narrowed the gap. I've narrowed the area that the current has to pass through to get a positive read on this. So if you push too hard, you will get false positives, but you have to push pretty hard. So just pay attention to the consistency of your patient's skin. Sometimes you will find people who have extremely dry skin. And despite the fact you have this on the dry setting, you still can't find points. So the things that I would recommend for you are you could either take a wet cloth and wipe it over that area and dry it. That's usually enough to hydrate the skin that you can find the points. Or to be honest with you, it's very satisfying to see this light go off when you're looking for acupuncture points, but by far the most accurate measure of whether or not you're on top of an acupuncture point is when the pitch of this unit is very high. There are some acupuncture points that are actually quite large. So when you're using this device, you will find the point, but you really want to find the point that has the area of the highest conductivity, and that's reflected in the highest pitch. So the higher the pitch, the better your treatment is going to be. So really the only time I look at the light on this is when I turn these devices on. I look to see if the battery's good. And beyond that, I don't really watch the light. As long as I hear a high pitch, I'm good. Now, the other thing I'll tell you about the light is you might like to see the light go off when you find acupuncture points. That's very satisfying. But beyond finding points, do not watch the light. It will drive you crazy because sometimes it blinks, sometimes it doesn't. And that's a feature, that's something that's dependent on what polarity it's set on and the intensity it's set on and how conductive the patient's skin is. So my advice to you is if you want to look at the light, look at it to make sure you have a good battery, look at it to make sure you found an acupuncture point. Beyond that, don't look at the light because it's going to cause confusion for you. And it doesn't really mean anything after that anyway. All right. The other acupuncture point we are going to locate is this point right here called large intestine 11. It is in the crease of the elbow. Large intestine 11 is a homeostatic acupuncture point. It's good for things like fevers and balancing out your energy in general. Like if you didn't know what to do, this would be a really good point to focus on because the whole goal of acupuncture is actually homeostasis. It's balancing your body out. This is a really good point for that. So I'm going to put the camera, pull it down just a little bit right here so you can see my elbow. And if I bring my elbow up like this, you'll see there's a crease of skin that goes all the way out to here. If I put a little mark right here, this is, let me do it in black so you can see it. Put a little mark right here. That should roughly be large intestine 11, but we're going to use our Dolphin Neurostim here and validate my guess as to where large intestine 11 is. So I'm going to turn the device on, make sure I got my thumb on the metal plate, make sure I got a green light, and I'm going to slowly pull this across my skin. And I guess I need to turn around so you can see it. All right, here we go. So we're moving along, and there I am on top of the point, and the light goes off. So once I've found the point, now I can push the black button, and you're going to hear the device start to beep. My suggestion to you is you count out somewhere between 20 and 30 beeps. That's not the same thing as 20 to 30 seconds, 20 to 30 beeps. And that's typically all you need for most of our protocols. So when you're doing this, count out about 20 beeps. If you find that it's too intense, what you'll notice when you are doing point stimulation with this device, you will notice that it really doesn't feel like a shock, and it really feels pretty sharp when it's turned up a little bit. So if you find that it is too intense, roll it back so it's less intense, because we want you to complete the treatment and get the benefits of it. The more you feel it on a particular point, the worse your pathology is. So all of these points that are located in these manuals are always more conductive to electricity than the surrounding skin. You will always be able to find them with the Dolphin Neurostim. However, the worse your problems are, the more conductive those points become. So what that means is that some points, you can set this on any given intensity level. At some points, you're not going to feel it much at all. But on other points, it's going to be very intense. So that's an indicator that those points are more involved in your problems. You got to remember, like, these are protocols, guys. Like, we put these things together so you have a pretty good handful of points to treat any of these conditions that are in here. That doesn't mean that all of those points are exactly related to your particular problem. There may be of 10 points, there may be only 6 of them that relate to your problem. So those are the ones you're probably going to feel the most. Those are the ones you should probably go back to in the future to treat. So that is kind of our little tutorial on how to locate points. Remember that once you find the point, don't push this button down until you find the point. This is what we call search mode. So when I turn this on, this is in search mode. When I push this button down, it's in an active treatment mode. But as soon as I release this button, the treatment stops, okay? So you got to hold this down to complete your treatment. Once you're done, treatment's over. All right. The next thing we need to go over is one of my absolute favorite things, and that is how to treat a scar. So one of the things you could do with this device, and better than just about anything else out there, is to treat scars. I'm a manual therapist by trade. I have spent most of my career working for neurologists, neurosurgeons, physiatrists, and in women's health. I have seen all kinds of techniques for releasing scars, from manual therapy to prolotherapy injections to neurotherapy injections. And I can tell you that by far the fastest way to release a scar is by using microcurrent. But you have to apply it properly. If you don't apply it properly, you will not get the outcomes that you're looking for. But properly applied, you'll get on average about a 20% reduction in the overall density of the scar. So to be clear, once you have a scar, you will never get rid of it. It is always there, but you can change the consistency of it. So if you're able to change the density of that scar, it becomes more pliable. I guess you could have surgery, but if you have surgery, you're just going to have another scar. So what this will do is electrically repolarize these scars. And once you do that, once you get the conducting electricity properly, once you flip the electrical charge of the scar, the polarity flips and it becomes more conductive. And when that's the case, it becomes less dense, and the less dense it is, the more pliable it is. So why does that matter? Well, it matters because scars can be painful. Scars can be painful because they pull. They're really, really tight. And if you change the density of them, they won't pull anymore. Scars can bind around nerves. Nerves go from deep to the surface. So if you release that scar, a lot of times you can dramatically decrease the density of a scar. My benchmark is I shoot for probably somewhere between a 60 and 80% reduction in the overall pain of a scar the first time I treat it. That's my expectation. If I don't get that, I get concerned there's something else going on. Scars also can pull on other areas of the body. So you can have like a knee replacement scar. By the way, you can start doing this immediately after surgery. So if you have just had surgery, one of the best things you can do is do Dolphin Neurostim treatment around the area, not in the area, but around the area, because low frequency direct current does increase ATP production by 400 to 500%. ATP is an adenosine triphosphate, and that's the mitochondrial fuel. So it does it as well as a $50,000 laser for a few $100. It will also increase protein synthesis and cellular membrane transport. So those are very positive things that really speed up wound healing. I have used these on non-healing diabetic ulcers and gotten tissue granulation, so it is a very good tool. I used it on my father after he had his knee replacements. The first one I got to treat him, and it worked great. And the second one, he was at a hospital somewhere else, and he had all kind of problems. I had to clean him up after he was done with therapy because he had scar tissue in his knee, and he couldn't get his full range of motion back until I used this. So the sooner you can get to this after a surgery, the better off you are. However, this does work on very, very old scars. I have treated scars that were 50, 60, 70 years old, and it works quite well. So I'm going to show you how to do that. It's something I get excited about. It's something I market for. So I market my services to physicians, especially surgeons, because surgeons make scars. And sometimes they make scars that look great, and sometimes they make scars that don't look so great. But regardless of whether the scar looks good or not, it can still be painful, and it can still pull, and it can still trap fluid and trap the movement of lymph. And in the world of acupuncture, any scar that cuts through any of these meridians, these energy lines, creates problems. So if you have had a C-section or a hysterectomy or a tummy tuck or a mommy makeover or a gallbladder removal or fill in the blank, whatever kind of abdominal surgery, you have an 80 to 85% chance of getting abdominal adhesions. That's for one surgery. If you have two surgeries, you have a 100% chance of getting abdominal adhesions. That's scar tissue that grows beyond the boundaries of the initial scar itself. So it can wrap around your intestines, wrap around nerves, and cause problems with lymph flow, and it blocks the flow of chi from an acupuncture perspective and is not particularly good for you. So how do we go about treating a scar? Well, if you're going to treat a scar, you need 2 Dolphin Neurostims. I should have another one around here somewhere. Here's my second one right here. And now we need a scar to treat. The best way for me to teach you how to treat scars is for me to draw a scar on a piece of paper. And I'm going to show you how we're going to do this. So we're going to pretend that I have had open heart surgery. And I have a nice zipper scar right in the middle of my chest. So everybody laughs when I do this, but it's the easiest way to do this when there's only one person doing the tutorial. Let's see here. So I'm going to put this on kind of like a bib. And this is going to be my little heart surgery scar here. So we have the scar down the center of our body. How do we go about treating it? Well, you need 2 Dolphin Neurostims. You need one to be able to treat with the negative polarity. And you need one to be able to treat with the biphasic channel. So we're going to use a plus minus here. It's terrible, but anyway. So when you look at your Dolphin Neurostims, you're going to set one on the negative setting here. You're going to set the other on the biphasic setting here. And the goal here is to play ping pong with electrons. Like simply put, this does not conduct electricity well at all. So scars are very non-conductive to electricity. But if you can get this tissue conducting electricity, it will actually change the consistency of it. But to do that, you have to drive electricity through that. The problem is the tissue doesn't want to have electricity driven through it. So if you were to take a standard 10 unit pad and a 10 unit, which is alternating current, which I despise, but let's say you had a 10 unit and you put pads over it like this, the electricity will actually not go through the scar. It's simply going to take the path of least resistance and it'll just go right around the scar. And that is how electricity works. It always takes the path of least resistance. But if you have 2 separate sources of electricity, one that pushes, one that's pulled, and it's connected in the middle by you, it will actually draw electrons through that tissue, and it will repolarize the tissue, and you will see changes on the very first treatment with a scar. You can visibly see the changes. You can palpate the changes. Scars that are dipped in will rise up. Scars that are mountained up will flatten out. It is a very, often a very dramatic change. So got my 2 Dolphin Neurostims. I've got one on negative, one on biphasic. So I'm going to turn both of them on, make sure I got green lights here. I'm going to go on either side of this scar. You can start at the top or the bottom. I don't really care where. And we're going to go on either side of the scar. We're going to count out 10 beats. Then we're going to move down 1/4 of an inch and count out 10 more beats. And we're going to move out 10 more and count out 10 more beats. So we're going to do that all the way down the scar. So at every little interval there, we are counting out 10 beeps so that all the way down the scar, you have a pattern that looks kind of like this. So you've got this. Once you get to the bottom of the scar, you're going to change the units from one hand to the other, or you're going to flip the polarities. I don't care what you do. Then you're going to start at the bottom of the scar and you count out 10 beeps and go all the way back up to the top. 10 beeps at each shot. So that's 2 passes. Once you get to the top, change them again. Go back down. 10 beeps at each. So that's 3 passes at 10 beeps each. We're bouncing electrons back and forth through the scar. We're playing a game of ping pong with electrons. And it really is that simple, guys. If you want to do a simple scar release, that is the way to do it. I teach a whole weekend course on scar release, and it is really cool. We do a lot of cool scars. We learn a lot of acupuncture points with it, a lot of cool tricks, but this is the basis of it. So if you learn this, you can do a pretty fair job of releasing scars. Obviously, there are some tricks and stuff like that that make it a lot easier, but just starting out, this is how you want to start with scars. Once you have made your 3 passes, then you're going to take your Dolphin Neurostims and you're going to go actually on top of the scar. So at this point, what you want to do is start at the top and the bottom of the scar and work your way through the scar, counting out 10 beeps. And you're going to do 3 passes. So there's 1, there's 2, and there's 3. So once you've done that, you've pretty well completed a really basic scar release. And it is rare that you don't notice a difference just with doing that. It's very, very fast. It's non-invasive. It can do things that injections can't do. You can pass electrons through areas where you can't stick needles. You can't stick needles deep into around your intestines to scar tissue that's wrapped around your intestines and your bladder and other things like that. But you can pass electrons back and forth through there quite easily. So it's a really great technique. I recommend it for any scars. You can use it. I actually market to plastic surgeons because people have cash. They pay tens of thousands of dollars to plastic surgeons to make scars on them. And although they may look great, sometimes those scars are very painful. So if you have $10,000 to $15,000 to pay somebody to make those scars, you probably have $1,000 to pay me to make those scars feel better. And that allows me the luxury of being able to treat veterans and stuff like that who don't necessarily have the money to get their scars treated, but desperately need them treated because they're in so much pain. So people ask me how much I charge for that. I charge $150 for the first visit, and I charge $90 for follow-up visits. Follow-up visits usually last about half an hour. So if you market it properly, there is definitely potential there to be able to help people out a lot and make some money. So that's my little spiel on treating scars. And it is quite effective. And if you are in the business of being a healthcare provider, if you are a physical therapist, occupational therapist, chiropractor, acupuncturist, whatever, scar tissue is something that really affects what you do. It is a huge deal. And having somebody, either yourself or someone else who can use these devices to release that scar tissue can dramatically change the outcomes with your patients because it can be very difficult to deal with. Some of those adhesions, I used to work for a neurosurgeon and I saw surgeries that went great. And then you get adhesions around the spine and you got somebody who's back in pain. They're worse than they were before. And sometimes people really do have to have surgery. Sometimes everything blows out and they're at risk for, not being able to walk and peeing and pooping on themselves. And sometimes you got to do surgery. But you have to be able to clean that stuff up afterwards. And so that's where the microcurrent comes in. So it's a great device for doing that. I really haven't seen anything yet that seems to be able to compete with it. And to be honest with you, it really hurt my feelings because I spent thousands and thousands of dollars on taking classes to learn how to release scars with cups and scraping tools and magnets and watch people do neural therapy injections and all kind of stuff. Microcurrent just works really well. So I do urge you to embrace that particular technique. All right. So the next thing we need to go over is how to go about doing vagus nerve stimulation. So if you happen to have a vagus nerve kit, now would be a time to bring it out. You have a nice little book like this that has all kinds of stuff. So I was actually just out in Phoenix, Arizona, and Stephen Porges was speaking at that conference, and he's the guy who came up with the polyvagal theory that is listed right here. So you can spend a little time reading in your book about the polyvagal theory. The vagus nerve is the longest nerve in your body. They call it the wandering nerve. and it is largely responsible for regulating how upregulated your system is. So it controls both the sympathetic and parasympathetic sides of things. So what it allows you to do is either wind things up or bring things down. It is the information superhighway between your brain and your gut. More information passes from your gut to your brain than passes from your brain to your gut. But on top of that, it is great for calming things down and urging your body to recover from stressors or keeping you from being stressed to begin with. So how does that work? Well, your vagus nerve kind of starts behind each ear. So I'm going to show you how to set this stuff up in just a minute, but we need to talk about the vagus nerve and a couple of the numbers associated with it. So when we talk about the efficacy of vagus nerve stimulation, there are a lot of numbers we can pull off of an ECG that tell us how effective we're being. And you can Google these if you'd like. You can Google things like HRV, which is heart rate variability. It is a highly researched thing. It is a measure of total power of the autonomic nervous system. So it gives you information about both your sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. So it tells you about your ability to fend off incoming stressors like disease or injury. And the HFF, which is your high frequency vagal tone, gives you a measure of how well you recover from things like that. To tell you how accurate it is, there was a veterinarian out in California a few years ago. Her name was Christine Ross. She made a big splash in the world of horse racing because she actually looks at racehorses. And what she did was she measured the heart rate variability of a bunch of racehorses. The higher the heart rate variability is, it's not your heart rate, it's the heart's ability to vary the timing between beats. So the higher the variability, the healthier you are. It's actually a measure of longevity. So she put together a database of horses and their heart rate variabilities, and she put them into categories. She put them in categories, the ones that are in great shape, and then ones she considered to be high risk. The ones that were high risk, I think she had somewhere between 14 and 15 horses she tracked over a series of months. So the ones that she tracked, she actually noticed that she considered those at-risk horses. So over a series of months, 14 of the 15 horses were injured during track training and were unable to return to racing afterwards. So she was not able to predict who wins races, but she was able to predict, based on these heart rate variability numbers, who could recover from injuries and who couldn't. So she actually just, made a little business out of it. She said, hey, like if you're going to buy a racehorse, I can't tell you who's going to win, but let me measure your horse, because I can tell you if this horse is, I can tell you A, if this horse is prone to getting injured, and B, if this horse gets injured, will it recover and be able to race, because racehorses are expensive. So it's a very predictive number. You can go into something called, if you are a performance athlete, you can go into something called overtraining syndrome. And when you are in overtraining syndrome, your body will not get faster or stronger and is much more prone to injury. So you have to have about 72 hours of recovery once your heart rate variability drops too low. But after that, it seems to come back up again. The problem is, if you're an elite athlete training to peak on a certain date, if you have to take breaks like that periodically, it throws off the time in which you peak. So if you do vagus nerve stimulation, the way I'm going to show you in just a minute, if you do it for about 20 to 30 minutes after an intense workout, you can actually offset delayed onset muscle soreness, and you can dramatically decrease the chances you will go into overtraining syndrome. And if you happen to have a systemic inflammatory condition of some kind, like an autoimmune disease, Hashimoto's, MS, anything like that, vagus nerve stimulation actually does reduce systemic inflammation. As a matter of fact, it can even be quite effective for things that are more acute, like COVID. Like I certainly used this when I had COVID. It allowed me to move my oxygen saturation from a dismal 80 up to about a 92% oxygen saturation. So it kept me out of the hospital. And it only took about 2 hours to move those numbers. So it was quite effective. You can also use it for things like like toxic mold exposure. That's one of the cases that that you might use it for. So there are a lot of different applications for this. Actually works well for things like allergies too, because that's systemic inflammatory autoimmune. And it works well. I had a stepdaughter who was autistic, and being able to do this with her was actually quite beneficial in terms of helping her being able to concentrate in school. So a lot of benefits to doing vagus nerve stimulation. And as long as you do it within reason, there really aren't too many risks. So how do you go about doing vagus nerve stimulation? Well, you need a Dolphin Neurostim. You need a black cable that looks, let's see if I've got one here. I'll show you guys. Black cable that looks like this. It's got a little cup on one end. You will notice that there's a little shiny metal plate in there. Let's see if I can get it to shine on camera. There it is. That metal plate has to touch up against the tip of this unit, so you need to put it on here like this. Then you have a little male connector at this end. So you have a choice. You can either, in your kit, you can either pull out what's called the Y wire, the Y connector, and that allows you to put an ear clip on either ear, or you can connect it directly to one ear clip. So in this case, I'm going to demonstrate the Y connector. There are two sets of ear clips with your Dolphin Neurostim. There are white ones and black ones. You will notice that they are different. The black ones have like a little metal plate here, and the white ones have a conductive rubber little pad on here. So this is much more conductive without doing anything to it. But if you have sensitive skin, I recommend using these. With either of these, you should probably moisten them with some conductive medium. Alcohol gel actually works pretty well, so you can sanitize it and have something that's conductive all at the same time. So I'm going to connect the male connector on the Y wire with the female connector on the little things here. And let's get a little bit of alcohol here and put it on there. There are three. If you look in your vagus nerve kit, there's actually a quick setup card that will tell you where you can put these ear clips. So you will see that there are three different locations you can put them. So in order of importance, it kind of goes like this. So there was a study that came out very recently, and it looked at the concentration of nerve endings of the vagus nerve in the ear. And the highest concentration of nerves for the vagus nerve in the ear are on the underside of the tragus. So that's this little flappy thing right here. So right under here. So not everybody has a tragus that does well for this, but if you can, the best location to put these ear clips is to take the metal part of this, the conductive part of it, and put it on the inside of the tragus like this, and let the clips set like that. But you'll notice that even on my model here, it does kind of snap loose. Now, the second place, if that doesn't work for you, is on the upper concha of the ear. So that's this area right here. And you can take and put your clip in there like this. You would want to listen to make sure you have a nice high pitch with a Dolphin Neurostim. And the last place, the least conductive in terms of nerve endings for the vagus nerve, is on the earlobe, but it is the most accessible. And we have seen plenty of good outcomes with people putting these clips just on their earlobes. So I'm going to take a couple of these and I'm going to put them on my ears. I'm going to put one on this side in the upper concha of my ear. Put one on the upper concha of my ear here. And you can see that when I touch this plate, the light goes out, so that tells me I've got a good connection. So the next thing I need is a white wire. It looks kind of like this. And you will notice that this white wire has what looks like a male and female connector, but if you look at this connector that looks female, it's actually male. It just has the male connector hidden in there, so it's shrouded. This is a regulation in some hospitals. So you need a little tiny electrode that looks like this. You have a package of these. You can just slide that onto either one of these connectors. I do recommend that you clean the surface of the Dolphin Neurostim. You can use these little electrodes over and over again, as long as they don't get oily. So if you put a little bit of alcohol on a wipe and clean the conductive surface of the Dolphin Neurostim off, you can put this little electrode on there, and it should stick just fine like this. So now you have this on here. And the last thing we need to do is to connect up the anode. So we need some of our square electrodes that look like this. Again, if you clean your skin carefully before you put these on, you can use these over and over and over again. When I do vagus nerve stimulation on myself, these last me typically anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks. But I do clean my skin carefully so no oil gets on the electrode. As soon as oil gets on the sticky part of these electrodes, you're done. They just don't hold on very well. So the places you can put these, according to our quick setup guide on the back of there, you will see that you can connect them below the belly button, which kind of makes sense because the vagus nerve runs from here all the way down to your gut, right? So you can put them above your belly button. Make sure that they are on your skin and not on your clothing. You can also put them on your wrist. I actually like the wrist connection quite a bit. There are 3 acupuncture points right here called the golden triangle in acupuncture, which are for anxiety. They are Shin Men, which is kind of like the body relaxer point. And there's a point there. It's also the vascular source point in acupuncture, so it influences blood pressure. And there's another one that influences the chest, which is anxiety. So all those are things that do well for bringing stress levels down. So you're going to peel this off, and you can either put it across like this. If you have wide wrists, if you have thinner wrists, you might be able to get it to cover all 3 of those acupuncture points at the same time. If you have 2 ear clips on, we recommend putting the Dolphin Neurostim on the biphasic setting. So slide it over biphasic and turn the Dolphin Neurostim on. If you've done it right, you probably will not see a light here because it's conducting well. So it's kind of like you found an acupuncture point. And then you're going to push this little black button, and the unit's going to go silent. This may blink a little bit, but you'll notice if I turn it way down, it's blinking all the way anyway. If I change the polarities a little bit here, let's see if I can get it to, it looks like it's going to blink the whole time for you guys. Sometimes when you do this, it'll stop blinking like that. But it'll continue to run, and it'll run for 11 to 14 minutes, and then it'll stop. So how often do you want to do this? Well, to start out, we do recommend doing it for about 5 minutes for your initial treatment. That's what we do here in the office. We do a 5-minute treatment to see how people respond. Most people will not notice a dramatic difference after 5 minutes, but some people are very, very sensitive. I had a lady this weekend that I treated, and she had a terrible reaction to the COVID vaccine, and she has dysautonomia from it, and they had to take out some organs, that she's got all these scars on her tummy, and she's just a wreck now. For her, when we did vagus nerve stimulation, about 2 minutes, her skin started to get kind of clammy, and she started giving kind of a sympathetic flush. So for her, that's as much as she needed. Now, for the average person whose autonomic nervous system is where it's supposed to be, 5 minutes, you wouldn't even feel it. But for her, it started having effect. So what we said was, hey, look, like this is enough for today. And tomorrow, instead of 2 minutes, let's do 3 minutes. So that's somebody you'd have to build up very, very slowly. Typically, we tell people to increase it by about 5 minutes a day until they hit somewhere between 20 and 30 minutes. Usually that's enough. However, if you have something that's very acute ongoing right now, like when I had the Delta variant of COVID, I needed to use this Dolphin Neurostim 3 to 4 times a day. And that's what kept me out of the hospital. So if you're very sick or very ill right now, you want to use it fairly consistently. But if you're on an even keel, what you don't want to do is you don't want to, if your level of sympathetic arousal is here, you want to bring it down to about right here. If you start going down too low, like if you get way down here, then you got to come all the way back up here to hit homeostasis. Does that make sense? So if you go too far down, then your body has to work to come back up. So you want to hit a point where you're just kind of hitting right in this area, just in that little sweet spot right there. Then your body doesn't have really to work to recover. It's already in recovery mode. So if I were doing high intensity workouts, I would do it. So I would do it for about 20 minutes or so after my workout. in general, to give you an idea of how often I use it. So my profile, not particularly, I could probably stand to lose 10 pounds, but I'm in fairly decent shape. I'm 53 years old. I do 10-hour days of therapy. So I start at 8 in the morning. I finish at 6 at night. I don't take breaks. And then I go home and take care of 2 kids that I've raised myself. So my day really doesn't end until 10, sometimes 11 o'clock at night. And it's not that it's all that particularly stressful. I love my kids. I love what I do, but it's a lot. So, and I'm not 20 anymore. But what I can tell you is if I do vagus nerve stimulation probably twice a week, it just keeps me going nicely. I don't feel like I have to take a nap in the middle of my treatment day. And it does a really good job of keeping me healthy. So it's one of those things, it actually neuromodulates your system. There's your new word for today, neuromodulation. And vagus nerve stimulation consistently over time does shift numbers. The funny thing is, one of the numbers that vagus nerve stimulation shifts is actually a measure of exercise tolerance. So you can actually increase your exercise tolerance by as much as 30% just by sitting on the couch and doing vagus nerve stimulation. You can actually become a better athlete just by using electricity. It's kind of weird, but those are the numbers. So that is the general stuff about vagus nerve stimulation. You can, if you're going to do it on your right ear, you probably want to put it on the positive setting. That's generally used to bring things up. Don't do it at nighttime before you go to bed. It tends to keep people up. It's a great thing to do first thing in the morning if you need a little pep, but I wouldn't do it later on in the day. But if you feel like you've gone too far down, you can use some positive stimulation on your right ear to bring it back up. Generally, if you're using one electrode, one ear clip, you're going to do just left ear and negative stimulation. If you use both electrodes, you're going to use the biphasic setting, and you're going to go to your wrist. And if you want to use a positive setting, you're going to do positive polarity either to your tummy or to your right wrist. So those are the different ways you can apply this. And you have a whole book here about vagus nerve stimulation and how to do it and the things you can do with it. It is recently revised, so there's some good information in there. And it does play a part in a lot of our other protocols. I know that when I teach a concussion and brain injury protocol, vagus nerve stimulation is actually part of what I teach. So you have learned part of one of our more expensive workshops right here. So we are at about the 8:30 mark, and I told you guys I would have 30 minutes for questions and answer. But before we do that, I need to go over some contraindications, the do's and don'ts of the Dolphin Neurostim. So the first thing I will tell you is what I call the rule of pencils. Don't stick this anywhere you wouldn't stick a pencil. Don't stick it in your eye. Don't stick it way down your ear. Don't jam it up your nose. Don't jam it down your throat. As long as you don't do that, you're pretty well good. It can be used for treating internal scars in the mouth if you use an extension probe, like, let's see if I've got one here, like this. These do come with a Dolphin Neurostim. So you can put this on here and you can actually treat scars inside your mouth. And when I worked in women's health, we would make the patients buy 2 of these to do episiotomy scars. And then we would send this home with the patients. They would clean them and bring them back. You only have to do 3 or 4 treatments on an episiotomy scar to get great outcomes. Other than that, this is good for a self-treatment wand. So you can bend it and you can tape it to a back scratcher and you can hit points on your back. Or you can use it to treat irregular acupuncture points in your ear. So it's very useful. So do take care of this. It's a nice little addition. You can buy extras of these. I think they're probably about $25. You can always buy extra electrodes from the company. If you are careful with these little white ones, they will last a very long time because the only thing they should ever touch is this metal plate, which should be cleaned. So they should be fine. You will find yourself replacing these triangle ones periodically. Other things not to do with this. If you happen to have seizures, do not stick it directly on top of your head. You can treat just about anywhere else on the head, but right on top of the head, there is a contraindication for governing vessel 20, which is an acupuncture point on top of your head. It's known as Bai Hui, which is the meeting of 100 places. Even with needles, it's contraindicated. So just don't play around with that. You shouldn't stick this in your belly button. It's contraindicated to stick needles in your belly button in acupuncture. You can treat around the rim of the belly button, and that's fine, but don't treat directly inside of it. That's just part of old traditional Chinese medicine. And it's been around 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 years. And I really don't want to mess around with something that they have said for several thousand years is a bad idea. Other things not to do with this, don't stick this in a wound. It's fine to use around a wound, but don't stick it in a wound. Don't treat directly over cancerous tumors. This does increase cellular membrane transport and cell growth. So you don't want to run the risk of increasing tumor activity. Although I will say there is a microcurrent system on the market now that passes microcurrent through your brain that actually does shrink brain tumors. Take from that what you will. This is not indicative for that particular thing, but this is low frequency direct current. We don't directly treat cancer. If you're treating children, you can certainly use this on even babies. We've taught workshops at All Children's Hospital in Tampa. I use this on very, very tiny little babies for all kinds of things. I used it on my kids when they were little for colic and all kinds of things like that. And clearly I didn't want to kill my own kids, and they seem to have turned out pretty well. So it seems to be a pretty good device for that. Other things to avoid: don't treat pregnant women unless the doctor okays it first. If you treat somebody who's pregnant, the doctor's okay with it, stay off of the tummy. Don't treat over a gravid uterus. They prescribe TENS units to pregnant women all the time, but those are pads going on people's backs. Don't treat around the insides of the ankles. There are acupuncture points there that can be used to induce labor. Don't treat any acupuncture points that push energy down. Hoku is one of them. Don't treat this one. Don't treat on top of the head. That pushes energy down. Don't treat on top of the shoulders. That pushes energy down. Don't treat spleen 6 on the inside of the ankle because that can induce labor. And I have used this to induce labor before, and I can tell you that if you're ready, it can set it off like that. If your body's not ready, you can treat those points for hours and nothing will happen. But what you don't want to do is treat somebody in the first trimester, because if somebody's going to have a miscarriage, it's in the first trimester, and you don't want to be in the crosshairs when they happen to have that spontaneous miscarriage. Not a place you want to be. Plates, screws, artificial joints, staples, stitches, dorsal column spine stimulators, bladder stimulators, baclofen pumps, insulin pumps, all those are fine. Okay. Now, if somebody has a defibrillator or a pacemaker, you should get the doctor's okay first. In the information that comes with the Dolphin Neurostim, there is a little booklet that looks like this. It's in the little flappy pocket. You probably didn't even notice it. If you open it up, there is an actual diagram of the electrical output of this device. Tells you exactly what comes out of it. You can run that by your patient's cardiologist. If they say okay, then I guess it's okay. I'm not a doctor, so I can't tell you to do that. I can just tell you to be cautious and not to make those decisions yourself. So I think that's covered all the contraindications. If anybody has any more questions about that, you can certainly ask them. So I'm going to take a look here at our questions from the question and answer section. So let's see what we've got here. Susan asks, how close or far away from the scar? You're going to go right on the border of the scar and go about in quarter inch increments. Melissa asks, what about stretch marks from pregnancy? So Melissa, my friend Richie, who lives down in Florida, Richie's a wise man. Richie will treat half of your stretch marks. He'll treat half of one of your stretch marks for free. But if you want the other half treated, he's going to charge you money for it because it works really, really well. And people like to get rid of stretch marks. Stretch marks are basically like scars. Yes, it actually does work on those. Dr. Angela Thrasher asks, how long is your initial visit? It depends on what it's for, typically an hour or so, but that's including treatment and evaluation. Typically when I see people, they come to me with some paperwork and evaluation of some kind, but I do have to do my own stuff and take notes. I'm curious to know if they can heal or improve bunions. Susan. All right. Well, Susan, I have some kind of bunion-y stuff on one foot because of a heel injury I had years ago. And I can definitely tell you that it will definitely dramatically decrease the pain associated with that. I don't have terrible stuff. The biggest thing for me is just wearing wide shoes with a wide toe box. That works pretty well, but it does work on things like that. I had a guy in here today who had some kind of foot surgery, and he had what looked like Morton's neuromas on the bottom of his feet, but it had to do with how they did the surgery, and his toes were being pulled. And after we got done, his toes were actually straighter because we released the adhesions in there. So if there are any adhesions associated with the bunions, it absolutely will help that. This therapy actually does also really well with plantar fasciitis, but you got to remember to treat. Well, you're a chiropractor, so you would know, but you got to treat the sacrum. It's a lot of S1 and S2 radiculopathic stuff. Tightens up the soleus and gastrocs, and then that pulls on the plantar fascia. So definitely treat the sacrum. Can I show you how to use the extension probe? I already did that, but I'll do it again. So you're going to take your extension probe, and it has a little metal plate on it right here. You just stick that on, and then you turn the Dolphin Neurostim on and stick this wherever you want. You could put the electrode on there. You could take that white wire and put it on here and put an electrode somewhere, so you didn't have to have skin-to-skin contact. That's something you could do. Can it help heal a collarbone fracture? Yes. It increases ATP production and cellular membrane transport, so it definitely can. Can I unmute and ask sports performance and how this helps? You absolutely can. So unmute away.
All right. DC is just my last name, so full disclosure.
Oh, okay.
But hey, my son, 16-year-old son, is high performance athlete, sprinter. Curious to know how the different ways I can use it to support him. Including he had multiple allergies when he was born, 3 years old. So a really stressed immune system from really young. So I'm curious to know
where do you guys live?
Just outside Toronto.
Oh, well, our headquarters is in Toronto.
I know it is.
So what that means is you could actually go to the main office and talk to the guy who designed this equipment.
Yeah.
And he can give you a really specific protocol. But here are the things I will tell you.
Cool.
Your son as an athlete will benefit from doing what we call standard protocol, which is a spine treatment. If you look in this book, you can find the equivalent of it.
Like with the hamstring one, where
if you did the back pain protocol,
okay,
that would help him out quite a bit, because if you take the pressure off these nerve roots, that improves the flow of motor impulses to those muscles. And nerves are kind of like water hoses. So if you pinch a nerve by 50%, only 50% of the motor impulses get through, and whatever's at the other end of it can only perform at 50%. So if his low back is jammed, which it probably is, so that's going to affect his performance. You also need to release his deep hip flexors, like the psoas muscles. There are specific acupuncture points that do that. And Dr. Bruce could go over those with you if you catch up with him at the main office. Cool. And the other thing is to have him do, after intense training workouts, have him do about 20 minutes of vagus nerve stimulation.
Okay. Does it matter whether it's both ears, like at the one time, or separate?
You know, I would try it several ways. I would go left ear to his tummy and see how he does with that. And then I would try both ears to the wrist and see how he does with that. People react a little differently to vagus nerve stimulation. It's a kind of a persnickety nerve. Like a friend of mine, he does, like if you put it on either ear, he's fine. But if you do on both ears, he instantly gets nauseous.
Okay. Interesting.
And, you know, I've only seen that a handful of times, but people are different. You know, sometimes you give some people Benadryl and it makes them fall asleep. And sometimes you give Benadryl to other people and they might as well have smoked meth. So people are wired a little differently.
Yeah.
So that's the best advice I can give you on that. And anywhere, if he can actually use this himself. So anywhere he has tender spots in his muscles, he can stick this on there. It's not a terribly sophisticated way to do it, but anywhere he can put this on there, and this will resolve myofascial trigger points.
Yeah. Cool.
But I would touch base with the main office and ask if you might be able to bring him by. And if you're really nice and he might be willing to do a treatment for you, you might have to be nice and give him a video testimonial if he gets better or something like that.
Hey, I have lots of lots of athletes that would want.
But we have had a couple of years ago, we do a teacher's workshop in Toronto. Even for those of us in the States, we would all come up there and we go over the new material for the year. And there was actually an Olympic distance runner from Canada. She was a Canadian Olympian that they brought in for us to treat. So cool. It is used. I have used this on professional boxers. I've used this on professional MMA fighters. It gets used a lot in professional circles. It's a very useful tool to have.
Yeah, I'm
So,
super curious about where to learn more about how it impacts sports performance, only because I'm certain it does.
well, the nice thing is well, we have all kinds of studies on this stuff. So
Yeah.
trust me, if you get to talking to Dr. Bruce, he'll tell you all about how
Okay.
it affects sports performance.
Okay.
Um, and you could actually take a workshop. You could sign up for one of our introductory workshops. We
Okay.
do offer them in Toronto. They're usually at a hotel somewhere around the airport there.
Huh? Yeah, I
But
know
it's
where
a
they're.
2-day weekend workshop, and it will be a good way for you to be able to support your son in what he does. And they're not expensive.
Okay. That's awesome.
Alrighty.
All right.
Anybody else? Questions? Let's see what else we got in here.
I have more questions, but I'll wait for someone else to.
Okay. When doing a protocol on a client, is it better to do both sides simultaneously with the 2 dolphins, or is it better to do one point at a time? That's a good question, Melissa. So, if you were to watch me do a protocol with these, I use 2 of these whenever possible. Because in the world of acupuncture, using 2 devices at the same time, you can do circuits. So, for example, I might treat, let's say I have somebody who had post-mastectomy pain. So I might treat an acupuncture point on the wrist that influences the chest, like pericardium 6. So that's for chest pain. But there are emotions associated with that pain as well. There's some grief. So I might treat a grief point as well. So I might treat 2 points for the same problem. So that's the magic in acupuncture, is being able to combine these different points. When you work up down the spine, using 2 of these is much faster. You can do a lot of the protocols with 1 device. I think we figured out it's about 30% less effective to use 1 device versus 2. But one of these will beat the pants off of most other things that you can try. I mean, when I started with this, I only used 1 of them until I took a workshop. And I mean, it got way better after that, but I fixed all kind of cool stuff with just 1 of these. Fixed frozen shoulders and all kind of stuff. So very, very powerful tool in your hands. All right. So what else do we have for questions?
I've got a question here, if I could, please. I've got a website, and in order to market the Dolphin, do you have some materials that you can email us so that we could put it on our website so that we have the exact?
There are certain things they will let you share, and that's not really my department. But if you contact the main office, we do have some studies and stuff on the site and a bunch of things. And certainly they would, at the very least, let you link to those things. But I'm sure there's probably some things they would let you share. You just need to get the okay of the office. They're usually pretty, I mean, obviously they want to spread the word about the therapy and they want to sell equipment. So, it works in their stead. But there are certain things that are proprietary, and I don't, it's not up to me to say what is and what isn't. I mean, I use this all the time. I travel and teach this stuff, but I'm not up at the main office, making all the legal rules and stuff that have to do with it. But if you contact them, they're nice folks. You'll like them.
Okay. And
all right. What else do we got?
For the main office?
What?
Contact information for the main
office? You're actually going to get an email from the main office tomorrow.
Okay. Sounds good.
So just, I think the email will probably be from Hetvi, who is our social media coordinator, but it may be from somebody else. But if you ask any of them, they'll get you directed to the right people. They're all in one big, huge, it's a big open office, so you can kind of see everybody around. So anyway, they'll get you set up.
Okay.
All right. What else have we got, guys?
I can ask a ton of questions, so I just want to be respectful of other.
All right.
people.
Does anybody have, before Susan asks her ton of questions, does anybody else have a question?
I have one more on the
Okay.
extension probe. This is Angela.
Hey, Angela.
The silent button, when you press the silent button, that works the
Yes.
same way as you do it on the VNS. It's like a treatment button.
Yes. Yeah. So if you push that silent button, you can actually, so I've got the device on, so you can see the green light. So once I go to treat a point, I can either hold this black button down, or I can push this constant treat button. And as long as I am touching this metal plate and touching my patient, it will continue to deliver current. That's especially useful if you have someone, if you work with an autistic kid and they don't like the beeping noise, like that's a great thing. The one thing I will tell you is you need to make sure that you find the point first. So you've got to have the point finder on first before you initiate the treatment. And then once you find it, turn it on, and you can hold it just like this for as long as you want, and you're fine. So when you're treating a scar, because you're not really looking for acupuncture points, you can just put it on this side and you just go along the scar and you're good.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir. Susan, can I ask one more and then you can have the floor?
Sure.
Okay. Connecting, when you're doing scar treatment, connecting spleen 6 to the scar.
Hmm.
Give me a way to do that with somebody. I'm only 5'5" and the patient is like 6'4". Arms aren't that long.
Well, so you got to look at how they can bend. So typically what I will do is either have them on their back and have them draw their legs up.
Okay.
So it shortens the distance between there, or even if they're on their stomach, if they, if this is the foot, they can bend forward and you can get to it and then connect to the scar that way.
Okay.
So you just got to you have to slightly turn them into a pretzel.
Okay. Okay.
Does that help?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Susan.
You're welcome. What else have we got? All right, Susan, tons of questions. Time's
First
ticking.
of all, I don't know why this technology isn't like everywhere. Anyway, perimenopause, any information and research on like all the gajillions of symptoms women face that
Yeah, I mean, it works. I used to work in women's health. Like there were two things I learned how to treat working in women's health. If you can fix on nurses, if you can fix hot flashes and headaches, they will take care of you. All your patients will show up on time. Nobody will scream at you. It's nice.
Yeah. So
there are actually a lot of things you can do. It just depends on what you're trying to treat. There's actually protocols for most of those things. So if you just post on our, if it's not in here, if you just post on our Facebook forums, typically somebody will answer a question for you.
Oh, awesome. Okay. ADHD as well?
Yes. It might be slightly evident that I have a little bit of attention deficit disorder myself. And I do use this on myself to kind of stay zeroed in, especially when I have to, if I have to do any writing. I tend to just get distracted by all kinds of stuff. And if I consistently treat a few acupuncture points, it does actually help me zone in. Actually, vagus nerve stimulation is pretty good for that too. We didn't used to have vagus nerve stimulation, so I got used to treating acupuncture points for it. But vagus nerve stimulation is a pretty good way to stay focused in on things. It works pretty well. Keeps your mind from running all over the place. Yep.
Which points would you treat for focus?
I would probably use these parasympathetic calming points right here. I might throw in, something like stomach 36 on a positive polarity. That's the best tonifying point on the body to kind of bring things up a little bit, increase focus a little bit.
Cool. And in terms of last one, allergies, same, like my son has some food allergies. Curious what you have seen with that.
So here are the things you need to be aware of with food allergies. So first I'll give you some points and then I'm going to talk at you a little bit.
Go for it. Do it.
So one of the best points for allergies actually is right here.
Okay.
So right up under the lip of the fur, or acute allergy attacks. This is a really good point right here. And that's for any kind of allergic stuff. My son actually had a reaction to an antibiotic one time, and this is one of the points I had to use on him to keep his throat from closing up. It was kind of scary.
Yeah.
But it did work. You don't treat it just once, you keep treating it. So with food allergies, this and vagus nerve stimulation do a really good job of bringing down systemic inflammation. And doing vagus nerve stimulation does actually affect the biome in your gut. That being said, what lives in your gut has a very strong impact on how you respond to foods. Typically, we don't have food allergies. Typically, what happens is undigested proteins get through the lining of our gut, and then you develop a reaction to them, right?
Yeah.
So if you get your gut straight, like I know people who can take patients with lethal seafood allergies, and if they get their gut cleaned up in 6 or 8 months, they can eat seafood again, and they're fine. Because they're not getting undigested proteins into their bloodstream, so they're not having that reaction. But that does require some steps beyond this. And how old's your son?
He's 16.
Yeah, I mean, kids are going to eat stuff that's not great for them. That's just kind of a given, even the most well-intentioned. So, if you got a good functional medicine provider, they can help out a lot with setting all that stuff up. But ultimately, kids are going to be kids, and they're going to have some stuff going on. Like my son's 11 and he knows what he's not supposed to eat, but that doesn't mean he doesn't eat it. That doesn't mean,
Right. So like, I'm just like, if you had anaphylaxis, peanut, obviously I don't need him to eat peanuts, but am I going in the right direction mentally to think that by treating the vagus nerve that it will improve the immune system? Or
but what you're trying to do is improve the immune system, and you're trying to keep the immune system from being so reactive.
Got it.
And like peanut allergies, I mean, one of the explanations I've heard for peanut allergies in the world of functional medicine is that the carrier in some of the vaccines is peanut oil.
Mm-hmm.
So when you get a vaccine, typically there's whatever the dead stuff is. And if you just inject the dead stuff, your body's like, well, it's just dead stuff. So it doesn't really react to it.
Yeah.
So you got to put something in there to piss your body off. They used to use mercury. They don't use that anymore. They tend to use aluminum now, which is a neurotoxin. So if you inject aluminum and this dead whatever at the same time, your body's like, oh, that's really bad. And so it develops a response to that. So when it sees it in the future, it knows to do something about that.
Yeah.
The problem is that the carrier for some of those is peanut oil. So you're injecting this dead stuff and you're injecting peanut oil and then you're injecting aluminum. Well, when your body doesn't know the difference between the dead stuff and the peanut oil. So it's like, oh, well, peanut oil must be bad too. So we need to react to that. So you can, theoretically, you can develop some peanut allergies from those kinds of things as well. But there are ways to go about undoing that. That's far beyond the scope of my practice, but a good functional medicine person can put you on the right path for that.
Fair enough. Awesome. Thanks so much. This has been great.
Mm-hmm. All right, guys. Anything else? All righty. Well, we are quickly approaching 9 o'clock. My children,
I had one more question. Yes. I threw a question up on the chat. Are you? Yep.
Can you place a dolphin over a ganglion cyst or a benign cyst? You absolutely can. It actually can bring ganglion cysts down. So, I've actually seen it bring ganglion cysts down. You have to treat it periodically over time, but you can bring them way down. You also need to kind of work up from there and figure out what's feeding into the ganglion cyst too. Usually there's pressure from somewhere. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. All right, well, guys, thank you all for hanging out with me this evening. You guys will get an invitation tomorrow to watch this as many times as you want. I do spin things a little differently sometimes, so you can certainly sign up for this again if you feel like you're missing a part of it, or you can watch this one again. And you can catch up with us on our Facebook forum, and they will periodically, if there are workshops coming up, they'll email you and let you know there are workshops coming up. They're not going to bomb you all the time with stuff, but if there's something of interest, they will let you know. And it's a fun therapy. I've been using this for 20 something years now, and it rarely ever doesn't get outcomes for me. So it is a very effective modality, and I'm happy to share this with you guys because it has made a huge difference in the lives of my patients. We have 4 minutes left, so I'll tell you guys a quick story. So I had a lady come in the other week. Here are her symptoms as follows. She had excruciating head pain that turned into migraine headaches every other day. She had terrible low back pain that had left side sciatica going down to her left leg, down the back of her leg. She had loss of motor control in the left foot and numbness on the outside of the left foot. If she bent over to try and touch her toes, she would black out. And she took her head up like this, her diaphragm would go into spasm. You could actually see it spasm, and she would have problems breathing. And she tried to walk a straight line. Her right foot was fine, but her left foot would get out here and start to shake, and she would miss the line every single time. So I asked her how long it had been going on. She said 7 years. I said, what happened 7 years ago? She said, I had my son. I was like, oh, I'm sorry. So what happened? Did you have a normal delivery or C-section? She said she had a C-section. I thought, hey, like maybe it's a C-section scar. But then she said, I had an epidural And when I had an epidural, I had this terrible headache afterwards, and they nicked my spine. They nicked the dura of my spine. I was leaking cerebrospinal fluid. So for that, they just do what's called a blood patch. Draw a little blood, they shoot it in there, it plugs the leak, and the headache goes away. But she said, I can still feel that in my back. So I took it off a Neurostim, 2 of them, in fact. And before I did anything else, I asked her if we could treat that area because she could put her finger on it. So we started treating that little tiny area like a scar. And after about 30 seconds, she said, that's really weird. I can feel that go all the way up to my head. I can feel it go all the way down my leg. And as we continue to do it, her body started to shake, like first her back, then her entire body started to shiver. And I asked her if she was doing okay. She said, yeah, I'm doing okay, but this is pretty weird. I said, yeah, it's pretty weird. And after about the 3-minute mark, her body stopped shaking. And I said, well, we have some more work to do, but let's see where we are now. I said, so I want you to get up for me. So we got her up carefully, made sure she wasn't dizzy and all that kind of stuff. So when she got up, she said, well, my neck doesn't hurt anymore. My head doesn't hurt anymore. And I don't feel any low back pain. And, well, there's no pain going down my left leg. And let me try something. So she leaned over and was able to touch her toes, and she didn't black out or have any back pain. She tipped her head back as far as she could go, and her diaphragm didn't go into spasm. And she walked a completely straight line, and she then burst into tears. So that one little tiny scar on the dura, that dural tension up and down her spine, caused all those problems. And had she not walked into a friend of mine's office who's a chiropractor, and the chiropractor said, hey, maybe you need to see Joe because there's something weird going on here, she would probably be in pain to this day. Like, had somebody not used one of these on her, she would have been in pain for the rest of her life. She had had all kinds of shots. Everybody told her she was crazy, tried to give her psychiatric meds. So that's the kind of stuff this works really well for. So there's your little story. So on that note, I wish you guys a very happy evening. Thank you for joining us, and I'll see you guys next time.
Thank you so much.
All right. Bye-bye. Oh, wait. Looks like there's one more question here. Oh, just thank you.
I would ask cluster headaches too. Have you seen any cluster headaches?
Yes, you can work with those.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, bye.
Have a nice evening.
Yeah, bye.